What's good, guys? Just going live. I'll be answering any questions everyone has. We're going to be hopping into a mock draft here, too. As soon as I can figure out how to turn this screen around.
If you're hopping from health guru,
If anyone has any fantasy questions, just go ahead and fire them away while we're getting stuff going here. I'll be answering all that stuff in a minute. Just setting up some last minute stuff while we get going. Wait for people to file in. If you guys have any fantasy questions, just fire them away. We'll get into a mock draft very shortly. Just trying to get stuff going. So hang on for 1 second. What's up, man? How's it going? Good to see you. Gonna be answering any fantasy questions, talking values here in a second. Just trying to see if we can get something going here. There's the mock draft. Okay, we're just gonna get right into it. Start talking values then. And then, yeah, if anybody has any questions, they can fire them away. But one of the values I want to talk about that I think is going really underrated this year in fantasy is James White. James White is an extreme value. Currently going in the 13th round, third pick of the 13th round, RB 54. And let's look at his fantasy finishes over these last recent years. Last year wasn't great, but still, last year I think was basically where his floor was. And he finished a lot better than RB 54. So we're going to check that out. I'm going to go right now and find him. Okay, so last year, James White finished as RB 47. Not very good, obviously, in 14 games. But like I said, being drafted as RB 54 right now. If we go to 2019, 2 years ago, James White's finished RB 22. So that's insane return on that type of a draft pick. Of course, I can rate your team. Send in your team. Just drop your roster, and I'll let you know. Let me know what your format is. That's a big thing that helps out. So let us know, what type of scoring it is, how many people. But yeah, be happy to rate your team. But yeah, start talking about James White. So he's going as RB 54, finished RB 47 last year, RB 22 the year before that in 2019. Go all the way back to 2018. He finished as RB 8 overall. So that's just like looking at the last 3 years, finishes at 47, 22, and 8, and you can draft him at RB 54. Sure, Tom Brady isn't there, but with Mac Jones now as a starter, I expect them to throw the ball to the running back position a ton more. Here, let me move out of this. I'm trying to move so we don't have so much glare. There, that's a lot better. So, yeah, as I was saying, I think James White's an incredible value this year with Mac Jones being the starting quarterback now for the New England Patriots. I think those check down numbers go up dramatically from what they were with Cam. And he's never going to be a guy who's going to get a ton of running work on the ground attempts, but he's consistently using that third down role. He's got that role locked down in New England, and that's why I think he's such a good value this year. Just firing something away in the chat right here. Ooh, Eckler. That's a nice pick. Here, guys, I'll be right back. I'll be gone for 1 second. Just let me know what your team is. I'll definitely rate it, though. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Austin Eckler, though. Clyde is like my favorite probably player to take in most drafts currently, and Eckler is the one player I took Clyde in my money league at 17. Eckler was the one player he got taken one spot in front of me that I would have taken ahead of Clyde. He's just so safe. I think he's still got top 5 ceiling. He finishes RB6 with only 132 carries in 2019. Last year, when he was basically on the same target pace he was that year, getting close to 130 targets when he returned from injury. Before he got injured, he was doing really well as well. I just think that he's going to get 90 receptions, close to 200 carries. We're talking about Alvin Kamara-like numbers. They have one of the most improved offensive lines in all of football as well. The Chargers last year had the worst rated offensive line according to Pro Football Focus. Then they went out in free agency. You got the best center in football and last year in Corey Linsley, got one of the best tackle prospects in the draft. And I'm blanking on their left tackle's name. I'll look him up. I'm not going to be able to forget it. I can't believe I can't think of his name. He got drafted 13th overall by them, though. And Rashawn Slater. Rashawn Slater's looked really good in the preseason as well. So they look to have one of the most improved offensive lines of football, only behind the Chiefs. But I would still, like I said, that target volume is just so safe with Eckler. I would take him over Clyde Edwards-Helaire because I think they have similar upside, especially now with Herbert. Herbert is the best rookie quarterback I've ever seen, honestly. He just looks so poised the whole year. Maybe that part of that was because crowds weren't there, and we'll see him take a step back this year. But if we're just judging as a rookie, he was pretty insane. He was like I said, best I've ever seen. But, yeah, so I think Eckler is one of the safest players in fantasy. He's one of that sweet zone of players where you have both a high floor and a high ceiling. I think you had that also with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like I said, their offensive line is the most improved in all of football. Adding probably 5 new starters, it looks like. That's pretty insane. And a bunch of their starters, ESPN came with an article, a bunch of them were ranked literally last in run block win rate, which is or bottom 4 in win block run rate, which is pretty telling statistic. Okay, I'm just gonna move over here. This looks like a better view. But yeah, so I'm really excited about all of those guys, to be honest with you. Eckler and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are 2 of my favorite players to draft. Yeah, and whenever you just drop that team, I can give you a review. And if anybody else has any questions, I'd be happy to let you guys know. Any fantasy questions you got drafts coming up, you want me to rate your team, you have a question about who you should start week 1, anything like that. Okay, perfect. Here we go. Okay, 10-man league, 6-pick, full PPR, Eckler in the first. I like that pick. I think too many people are afraid to take Eckler in a PPR, and I think, and especially in PPR leagues, he just goes all the way to the top of my list. I think he's already a first-round pick, not in PPR, but in PPR, he definitely becomes that. Antonio Gibson the second, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, and Deontay Johnson. That's a pretty hot start, man. That is a really good team. Eckler and Gibson is a 1-2, especially in a PPR. I think Eckler, you got the safety, and Antonio Gibson, you've got the firepower to, have that top. Both of them could be top 5 running backs, but Eckler, I think no matter what, is going to be pretty safe. I mean, honestly, both these running backs are pretty safe because last year Antonio Gibson finished as RB11, I think. Maybe it was RB12, but 170 carries and was not very involved in the passing game. I think we see him become a lot more involved in year 2. If he gets that third down role all to himself, the sky's the limit. I keep hearing people compare him to David Johnson coming into the second year. The only pushback I would have there with that high of a comp would be David Johnson, that Arizona Cardinals offense had Carson Palmer that year, and they were just insanely good on offense. That's how he had that 20-touchdown year. I don't know if Gibson can score 20 touchdowns on this team. That's my only concern, really. Maybe he can. 17 games, 20 touchdowns isn't as crazy as he used to be now. But yeah, I definitely high on Gibson. I'd give you an A minus maybe, just because I don't even know if I give you maybe just a straight up A, because I'm just trying to think of a 10-man league. I'm trying to think of like the average draft position. I'm just so used to 12-man. I'm just trying to think it out. But yeah, I give you an A or an A minus at worst in that draft. I like every single player that you started with. I think Deontay Johnson too is a big time. He hits so many targets, and he's a really good route runner. And when you can find both of those, he's another guy. He had 16 drops last year. He just cuts that number in half. I mean, there's 8 receptions without any added volume. I think he's a safe player as well. I think you got safe. You got high floor, high ceiling with Eckler. Same thing with Gibson. I think CeeDee Lamb, you have that blow-up potential. I love taking CeeDee Lamb in the 3rd round. McLaurin, same thing. I think he is just an absolute stud of a player. You pair him with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who hyper-targets wide receivers. He's going to be fantastic this year. I mean, he had 1,100 yards receiving last year on 2 high ankle sprains, and with Alex Smith's average depth of target, which was miserable, and other quarterbacks they had there. So yeah. Yeah, that's why I would grade your team so highly. I just think you have a bunch of studs already. Hopefully, yeah. If you've been watching the videos, it looks like it. Your team's sick, and yeah, I love it. I think the Chargers are a sweet team too. I think they're gonna do big things this year. Like I said, Herbert, I haven't seen anyone be as good as him really in a long time. Oh, you got Russ as your quarterback too. That's pretty darn good. Dallas Goedert. The only thing I'm worried about with Goddard, I would just keep an eye on him through week 1. To see what the target share is like with him and Ertz. I thought Ertz was going to get traded all year, and now obviously he's not going to. So if he gets a bunch more targets than Goddard does at week 1, I would probably be willing to, cut and move on to somebody else, just stream the tight end position. But that's how basically everyone's playing tight end, unless you got one of the top, 5. I think after Hawkinson, even I guess maybe 6, because if you spent the draft capital on Kyle Pitts, you're probably committed to him for at least the first quarter of the year. But you got to be willing to, move around and let those guys go. Another value I wanted to talk about. Okay. Here's your bench. This is going to help me out even more. I definitely give you an A after sitting your bench too. I really like OBJ, another guy has high upside. Myles Gaskin, I think, is a great pick this year, especially if you have him on your bench. I think he's a guy I do worry a little bit about if he'll get the every down work that we saw him have last year. But if he does, I mean, he's going to be a great value for drafts. And even if he gets 70% of what the workload he was getting last year, I think he'll still be a return on his average draft position. Gallup, I think, could go for 1,000 yards in Dallas this year. And A.J. Dillon, if anything happens to Aaron Jones, he can be magnificent for fantasy. And he can be pretty solid in the meantime, be a flex in bye week situations, stuff like that. I would definitely rate your team an A for sure. So let's talk about this next value that we currently have. Some might call them values, some might call them sleepers. Just depends how you look at it. Next one, we have Bryan Edwards. Bryan Edwards, let's see where he's going. 1308 in drafts, 58th overall. Let me tell you why I like Bryan Edwards. It's honestly just about opportunity for him, and I just think the wide receiver position is so hard really to break out into, and because you need volume. That's the big thing. You have to have targets, you have to have end zone looks, and it's hard to find a team where it's just like Davante Adams for the Green Bay Packers. If you have a receiver that's that dominant, okay, they're a bad example because they have Aaron Rodgers, but a better example is like the Carolina Panthers. They have Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and now Terrace Marshall in that mix, dividing up targets. It's hard for any of them to finish top 12 at that position. Obviously, McCaffrey's going to finish top 12 as long as he stays healthy. But for the receivers, it's hard to divide up those targets. In Las Vegas, really, you only have Darren Waller as the stud. He's going to get probably a 27% target share, maybe even 30%. But then, you still have those wide receivers. Bryan Edwards could walk into a 20, 24% target share somewhere in that range this year. And they've said in camp they've been using him in the red zone role as that red zone go-to receiver. He's starting over John Brown, who was a very good receiver last year and the last couple of years for the Bills. John Brown is talented. Bryan Edwards and Henry Ruggs are both starting over them. No problem. No problem for rating your team. I'm worried. I want to say your name. I'm worried I'm going to butcher it. Rodolfo, is that it? I'm sorry, man, if I butchered that. But anyway, Bryan Edwards. Yeah, I think Bryan Edwards is going to be a big-time return. I don't even want to say that. I just think he is more of a sleeper than a value because he has a chance, I think, to just take over and just, if he does get that role and he is good. Like if you watch this guy's tape, he just makes play after play, high-pointing balls. That's why I can see the red zone looks being his way. If you have a receiver who could walk into a bunch of target volume, a bunch of red zone looks, and you can draft him in the 13th round, and could eventually be the number one receiver for a team. Sweet, that's awesome. I got it. If you have a guy who could walk into the red zone role for a team, be the number one receiver on that team, and you can get that guy in the 13th round, you swing that bat, you aim for the fences, and if he's not, you cut him week one and you don't really worry about it. But he's a guy I love to take late because of that potential. Another guy that I think gets a boost because of the recent news of Cam Newton getting cut. Like I've been saying, I thought Mac Jones would probably be the starter for a while, but now it's for sure. I think Jakobi Meyers definitely gets a bump up. He's playing that slot role, which we have seen be so lucrative for a bunch of these New England receivers, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, different guys over the years. If you look at Jakobi Meyers, he basically played really strong the second half of the season. If you just extrapolate that second half, if he can put two halves anywhere close like that together, which you could conceivably do because I think he was injured for the first half of the season, and he's heavily utilized so far they could get lost in the preseason. I think that Jakobi Meyers. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Trying to come back to it now. So, I think Jakobi could be right. He's a good receiver, and he's in that gets into that slot role that's been so good for New England. Max can have to lean on somebody. He's a good thrower of the football. He moves around well in the pocket. I just think that he's going to get a lot of throws, and the way this offense works, that is going to be very good for fantasy. And he's a guy you can get like the 11th round plus. Let's see. My next value. Oh, this is one of my favorite in all drafts. He's in my league winner video. I love talking about him. Currently going as wide receiver 33. Heisman winning wide receiver last year, Devonta Smith. Draft this guy in the 7th round of every league you can. Trade for him, send all that stuff in. So basically, let's look at him and Jamar Chase and compare them. I like Jamar Chase coming this season. I think he's a talented wide receiver. He's a guy I love taking in Dynasty. Don't hear me wrong. I'm not trying to hate on Jamar Chase, but let's just look at the value. One is going in like the back of the 5th round, and one is going in like the beginning or back of the mid 7th round. One has T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd to compete with for targets, 2 other talented wide receivers. I know there's going to be a ton of pass volume there, but still. The other has Dallas Goedert, the ghost of Zach Ertz, to compete with for targets. Jalen Reagor, who's been awful, and he's been one of the most dominant receivers we've seen in the draft. And like obviously, Jamar Chase also had a dominant season as well. But I'm just saying their seasons are comparable. You're getting one of them a lot later, who will probably see a lot more target volume. And I just think that's a great value you can in drafts. I think he has 130-plus target upside. The guy's going to get open like crazy. I love to take him in drafts everywhere I can. Marvin Jones is definitely start-worthy. I think he's the number 1 receiver for Jacksonville. I think Trevor Lawrence is a talented quarterback as well. I could see, Laviska Shenault getting more touches than Marvin Jones, but I think Marvin Jones is definitely getting more downfield looks, things of that nature, and is the traditional one for that team. So I think he's definitely start-worthy. I think you could, potentially, especially if you're desperate. Week 1 is a good matchup for Trevor Lawrence. I think they play somebody who's not great. I want to say, is it Houston? Here, I'll look it up. We'll see who Jacksonville plays week 1. Jacksonville week 1 matchup. Yeah, they play the Texans week 1. I think that he's a strong play that week for sure. I'd be very comfortable starting him. Yeah, I think James White's definitely a value in drafts. He's just going too late, and he's going to be very, very good. I mean, again, he's one of those guys. He's going in the 13th round of drafts. You're drafting him as 4. You're taking all these other guys, and it's just like 2 years ago he had a top 10 finish. I don't think he has a top 10 finish, but I just think he's probably a top 36 back this year. A guy can snag at RB54 prices, and it's like that's how you get value on your team. That's a guy you could start in tough weeks, and a guy you could trade potentially. Jones or Gaskin for flex? Marvin Jones. I'd go with Gaskin. I think Gaskin's a strong play, and I think he's going to get more guaranteed volume than Jones will. I think Jones, I mean, a lot of receivers are like this, but no, I go with Gaskin for the flex. I was going to say Jones, he's not touchdown or bust, but I just don't know if he's going to have, 8 targets of volume week 1 exactly to come out and do enough to be good if he doesn't have a touchdown. But against Houston, I think no matter what he does, I think he puts up at least 60 yards. And it's like that's pretty solid for a receiver. Add in the receptions. I think he'll be pretty happy with him. All right, let's see if we have any other values to talk about. Oh, another one. Antonio Brown is currently in the 7th round of drafts. I've seen him go even later. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Gaskin's floor is safer. What up, Patur? Sorry if I'm butchering people's names, guys. I really am sorry. Gaskin definitely has a safer floor because he's probably going to see – I think a conservative estimate for Gaskins is still probably 15 touches. And if you get that as a running back, you're going to be pretty valuable for fantasy. Appreciate the thumbs up, whoever just hit that. Smash that. It helps out the stream. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to fire them away. I'll rate your team. Any specific player questions I can answer, trade questions, anything like that. I would say here, let's talk. I would say the number 1 player, if you guys haven't got this yet, just in case any of you guys are drafts coming up or anything like that I would be drafting or looking to acquire if he starts slow or anything like that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I draft him basically everywhere I can. They have the most improved offensive line in football. I think he's going to be much more involved in the passing game in year 2 this year, considering he had the COVID year last year, was doing a lot of their off-season work over Zoom meetings. Not best for developing, chemistry exactly with your quarterback. And I think that, yeah, he could catch 60 passes or something similar to that in this Chiefs offense. I think everyone too overrates his size and speed. Everyone thinks, oh, he's too small to be a goal line back and he doesn't have the breakaway speed. I think both of those things are wrong. He's a shorter guy. He's thick. He's strong. I think that I'm not saying he's going to be a bowling ball at the goal line, but I think he's going to be able to run in enough touchdowns to be good for fantasy, especially in the Chiefs offense. And if you look at guys like Brian Westbrook and LaShawn McCoy, they have very similar athletic measurements. I think Shady was a 4.5 guy. Clyde was 4.6, but Westbrook was 4.59, and so all these guys have done just fine in this offense for fantasy. Scored a bunch of touchdowns, similar height, similar weight. None of them were huge either. There's other ways to get into the end zone than just bowling people over as well. He's an elusive back. He can make people miss, get in there, all that good stuff. Thank you, guys. We got another like. That's dope. So I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just one of those guys. If I had to predict anybody to explode, win people leagues, it'd probably be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh, Dak Prescott. Excellent question, Batur. If I'm butchering your name again, sorry. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Dak Prescott. Absolutely love Dak this year in drafts. Dak. Okay, so here's the thing. I really don't understand why draft is. Ooh, I appreciate the sub, dude. 99 subs. That's awesome. I'll come back to Dak in 1 second. We're so close to 100, we can feel it. That would be awesome. I appreciate the kind words, my man. It's been awesome having you in here. Dak Prescott. I love Dak Prescott this year. He's in my quarterback league winners series. I drafted him in my money league very recently, got him in the 7th round. Excellent value when there was that injury concern about him. Here's what I love so much about Dak Prescott. Okay, 2019, his last fully healthy year, he finished as a quarterback 2, behind only Lamar Jackson, who had that crazy year last year. So then let's fast forward to today and see how his situations change. Last year, they add CeeDee Lamb to the team, another dynamic receiver who I think has league-winning ability in the 3rd round. Just crazy. They add him. And then Dak last year averaged 27.3 points per game in the 5 games he plays, including the 4th quarter that he missed of that last 5th game, got injured, missed a bunch of it. Dak is going to be phenomenal for fantasy this year. He's going to throw, I think, for 5,000 yards as a chance. He's never had a crazy touchdown season. We haven't seen it yet. He's been mostly right around that 30 mark. I think the year that he comes in and has a 40 year is here. I think we're going to get him. I think he's going to throw 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns. We've seen the rushing ability he has on the ground. He's run 6 touchdowns in 3 years in his career. Had 3 last year in 5 games. I'm hoping everything I heard about the ankle, I think people are assuming the ankle isn't going to be good. And I do have concerns about the rushing. But like I said, if he throws for those kinds of numbers, I think he'll still run the ball a decent amount on the ground, which is what you look for so much in fantasy. He's going to be great. Another thing about Dallas, they returned 3 all-pro offensive linemen this year. It wasn't just Dak that was out. So that offensive line is going to be good again for him. I see just sky's the limit for Dak this year in fantasy. I think he's got a strong case to finish as a quarterback 1, and one of those guys you can draft. You don't have to pay that quarterback 1 price for him, not even close. Drafting him where, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler, Josh Allen are going, you get a nice discount. And he's still, I think, if he's not in that tier, he's right next to it. And I'd much rather get some running backs and wide receivers and have a quarterback like Dak Prescott on my team. I just think team-wise, that's just how I like to build it, If we have any more questions, we can fire them away. So I think he's going to get less time for the first couple of weeks. I think he's going to be ready to go week 1. I think you're talking about Dak, right? I assume Dak's going to be ready to go. They said, I heard today. I just keep hearing basically what I think is they didn't want to play him in the preseason because they don't want him to get hurt. But he threw a simulated game in preseason week 2 when they had their preseason game. He threw, I think, 51 of 52 in that game, so made all the throws that he needs to. He's probably going to throw about 50 times a game, too, with how bad their defense is. That's another component to why I like Dak so much this year. That defense is just awful. They're going to get in positive game scripts for him to just keep throwing. So I think that's definitely going to affect it. But, yeah, he's ready to go. I think they're just – because it was a lat injury, too, and I think he'll be fine with that kind of an injury. Like, it wasn't a shoulder or anything like that where it's like, lats are pretty much means he was overcompensating for something in his throwing motion with his back. He gets that corrected, I think he'll be fine. Yeah, I think Dak's gonna be good to go. I think the ankle injury, honestly, is the thing that I think people are overreacting to. So I think the ankle, that's why I think he has that rushing ability to still this year. Because all I heard from a doctor's perspective was they were just said like, yeah, it looked awful, but like the break was clean, which I don't know what that means. Yeah, I'm not a doctor, obviously. I don't know what it means that it's a clean break. Obviously, it looked pretty awful, but that he should be ready to go. That the ankle should be 100%. And he didn't re-injure that. So since he didn't do anything to that, I feel pretty good about him. And I think, his arm is, I've had no concerns about it from what everyone is making it sound like where he's at this point. And I think a lot of the injury stuff too was just more cautionary, not wanting him to, overdo it coming back and potentially miss more time. They can't afford that by any means. Okay, dope. What's up, Elgin? Thanks for hopping in here, hitting us up. I'll answer both of these. So why is Matthew Stafford going so late in drafts? I think it's just because he doesn't offer much in the rushing side of the game. But he's another one of those guys. Talk about guys that could throw 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. Dak has a rushing side to him as well. But Matthew Stafford could do that as well in this Los Angeles Rams offense. I think they're going to be more pass heavy with him. He's got talented weapons with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, as well as Tyler Higbee at tight end, Deshaun Jackson, Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell. I mean, there's just guys all over the field, and they didn't bring him there to hand it off like Jared Goff did. They're going to throw the ball more. I think he's a good value in drafts, honestly, just because he's one of those guys too. You can draft him real late. If he doesn't hit, cut him, move on to the next quarterback. You're not out anything. You can move on and keep getting it going. CeeDee Lamb or Keenan Allen. That's a tough one. Okay, so honestly, I think it's just what are you looking for? If you need a one, I'm probably gonna take Keenan Allen. I think CeeDee. So where are these guys ranked right now? Is like 8 to 10. I have Keenan at like 8. I have CeeDee at 10. I think CeeDee could bust off and go for like 1,300 yards. But I think one of the most impressive stats about Keenan Allen, if you remove his injured games last year, in the Tyrod Taylor game, that the first year of the season, and just extrapolate his targets with his healthy games with Justin Herbert, he would be on pace for a 17-game pace of 192 targets, which is insane. Last year, Stephon Diggs led the entire league with 166. If he gets that kind of target volume, we saw him get 8 touchdowns last year, and again, now he's playing banged up in a game with Tyrod Taylor. I would probably take Keenan because of all those reasons. And yeah, Rodolfo made a great point. If it's PPR, I would definitely take Keenan. That's a great point, for sure. Because he's going to be, and that's the thing, Keenan week in, week out is going to be very good. And like I said, the touchdown thing, yeah, definitely go Keenan then if it is PPR. The touchdown, yeah, he had 8 touchdowns last year with Herbert. I think he is a guy who could post 10, 12 touchdowns now with how good Justin Herbert is. And that adds, everyone says he can't finish as a wide receiver 1, but if he gets 92 targets, he's finished with like 97 receptions or more, I think, each of the last four seasons or something ridiculous. Like if you look at his year-over-year stats, they're pretty crazy. And let's just say he does have one year where he has, 185 targets, catches 120 passes. He could go for 1,300 yards and have 12 touchdowns. He might not finish the wide receiver 1, but he could be wide receiver 3 or 4, or wide receiver 2 or 3, honestly, and just be dynamite for fantasy every single week, giving you solid weeks of reception-wise and yardage-wise. Yeah, Keenan's one of the guys I love drafting in fantasy. In that third round especially, I think Keenan all day, I think is a great value at that point in drafts. If he gets me in there, I'm taking him all day. Why is everybody so in love with Najee Harris? I think it's just because of the volume he's going to get in that Pittsburgh Steelers offense. I think it's going to be pretty insane, to be honest with you. I think he's going to get 260 carries, basically is his floor to me, if he stays healthy. The concern is Pittsburgh Steelers' offensive line. And he's going to be heavily involved in the passing game as well. So I just think he's going to get volume across the board. We've seen basically if you're starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you average close to 24 touches per game, had like a 16% target share or something like that. And I think one of the most impressive things is the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line this preseason looked really good. They've graded out as one of the top units according to Pro Football Focus, which, it's preseason, doesn't mean a lot, but from a fantasy perspective, you just hope they're not one of the worst offensive lines in football. If they're the 20th best offensive line in football, that's a win for Najee Harris owners. I think with that kind of volume he's going to get, I think he's worth it. He's a really, really talented back, and you don't see big backs in college, or really many running backs coming out of college have much production or in the passing game, but he does already. So I think that's instantly just translates and is really good for him for fantasy for sure. I'm going to use a bathroom real quick. If you guys have any more comments, drop them down below. I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. What round would I take Najee? I would take Najee in the second round. I think he's worth it there. Honestly, I'm willing to take him at the top of the second round. I would take Clyde probably before him. I think he's safer than Clyde is, though, because I think his volume will just be so crazy. But I think Clyde is a little bit of a higher upside, maybe, just because he's on the Chiefs' offense and everything hits right for him. But I'm probably comfortable taking him. Probably my 11th running back is right where I have him ranked. After Eckler, Clyde, I'd probably take Najee at the beginning of the second round. What are the chances Calvin Ridley ends up wide receiver 1? I think he's got pretty good chances. So it'll sound small, but really when you think about it, the chance of being a receiver ending up as a top wide receiver 1 overall, which I think is what you mean, is pretty tough. But I give him a 20% chance, somewhere right around there. I just think he's going to get such insane volume. He's one of the few receivers that has a chance to, has a realistic chance target-wise and the area of the field that he works to hit potentially 1,700, 1,800 yards, something crazy like that. Oh, my team? I'm definitely a fantasy guy. My favorite team's the Packers, though. I love the Packers. It broke my heart that Aaron Rodgers is probably going to leave after this year. It's definitely a bummer. But I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to hope that we play well this year, get one more year. I'm going to enjoy it. And we'll see what happens after that. But, yeah. Let me know, do you guys draft guys from your favorite fantasy teams usually, or do you usually let them go, or how do you balance that out? Are you guy that reaches for your guys on your team because you know them the best, or what are you thinking? Yeah, I knew people weren't going to like the Packers fan thing, but, hey, it's what I am, Can't change it. Yeah, if anybody has any other questions, drop them down below. I'll see our next value we got up. Let me pull these guys up. Oh, another guy I think is a value right now in drafts, especially with the uncertainty with Carmen, we got Packers fan. That's dope, man. That's sweet. The uncertainty that we have right now with here, I'll answer this first. What round would I take Kyle Pitts? This is tough because so my camp is really split with Kyle Pitts because I think rookie tight ends very rarely are good for fantasy, but at the same time, I view him more as a receiver, honestly. And so rookie wide receivers are great for fantasy, and you can play him in your tight end spot. So that could be very, very advantageous. So I think he's worth it. Me personally, I would probably take him in the 6th round because if I can take players like Tyler Lockett in the 5th round, he's another insane value. I can talk about him in a minute. Tyler Lockett, Brandon Ayuk, guys, if I can get those type of receivers I think could break out and just have crazy potential, I'm probably going to take them ahead of Kyle Pitts. But once you get to that 6th round range, that's where I took TJ Hawkinson. this year in my money league draft. That's where I'd be comfortable taking Pitts as well. I just think once you get to that point, it's just like Kyle Pitts could easily have 1,200 yards or something crazy as a rookie, 10 touchdowns. I mean, the guy is ridiculous. Like from a talent perspective, watching him play, it's truly amazing. So yeah, I think he could have pretty insane numbers as a rookie. I think he's worth the risk in the 6th round. Yeah, I think the Packers do deserve it too. Not the way they treat Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers deserves it. And hopefully he can make something happen. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Tyler Lockett. He's another guy. Insane value. He's currently going the 5th round of drafts. He's had 100 receptions last year, had 132 targets last year, had 110 the year before that. I know that they're going back to this run-first approach, but he had 110 targets 2 years ago when they were in that run-first approach, and he finished as wide receiver 14 that year. Finished wide receiver 9 this year. And right now here, let me see where he's going right in drafts just so I can get the exact mark. He's going as wide receiver 20 right now. So, like I said, finishes wide receiver 14 in the season where they were already, that smash mouth football team, running the ball, doing all that stuff, not letting Russ cook. But I think he's going to be just fine. I think they have that mind meld connection where he's going to be good to go with similar to Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers, what they used to have, honestly. Yeah, you took Keenan and Eckler. Hey, I get it. At least those are studs, though. If you can get them at good draft positions, it's all worth it. Tyler Lockett or Deontay Johnson? I take Tyler Lockett. I think that's why I think he's just a tier above all these, because you have to make a case for why all these guys can make it into that. Deontay has a target volume, but he struggled with drops, and maybe he won't get the exact same target volume he got last year. But Tyler Lockett, has already. We've seen him finish his. I think he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver. I'm right around 15. I'd probably Deontay right around 18 or 20. Would you trade Gaskin for Shenault? Gaskin is my flex and Lawrence is my QB. No, I wouldn't. Hey, hang on to Gaskin. For Shenault, I think Shenault will have a good year, but I think Gaskin's worth a lot more than Shenault. It would be nice to create that stack. I do get what you're saying, to stack Shenault and Lawrence. But I think there's a way you could probably do that without trading a guy like Gaskin. Figure something out. Well, we have 4 likes. Appreciate the love everybody's showing. Can't thank you guys enough. Let's talk about, what was our next value saying? Oh, Jamal Williams. That's a guy. There's certain uncertainty about DeAndre Swift, whether he's ready for week 1 already. I think that means there's an even bigger chance he misses more time. And Jamal Williams is currently going, let's see, just giving you guys the latest ADP. In the 8th round, back in the 8th round, I see him go, double-digit rounds pretty consistently. I think I love that pick, especially if you're a 0 QB team or somebody who needs a running back to get some volume in your RB2 spot or something like that to jumpstart their team at the beginning of the season, get yourself in an advantageous position so you can better make trades with your talent. Once people start 0-3 or 1-3, it's a lot easier to make trades with teams like that because their back's against the wall. They need to start winning right now. You've got 3-1 or something like that because you drafted Jamal Williams and a bunch of wide receivers early or something like that. Or maybe you went hero RB and stuck him in your RB2 or flex spot to start the year, and you get a few good weeks. If Swift misses, I think he could be a great value for your team in like the 9th, 10th round. I think he's and I think he's got season long value as well. He's going to get carries every week and be a solid flex play. So that's just another great value, I think, this year in drafts. Another guy I think we should talk about a little bit. I think he's going so late, and he's just so talented. So I think it's Damian Harris's job as the RB1 in New England. I think James White will have the passing game work. But if anything happens to Damian Harris or we see Ramondre Stevenson just continue to play at a super high level, I think he's worth a stash on teams. Because, like I said, if Damian Harris goes down, he'll inherit that first and second down role and just get a ton of volume and he's looked dynamic as a runner. The Patriots have a good offensive line. I think Damian Harris is another value in drafts, honestly. I wouldn't mind drafting both of those guys. I was probably not on the same team, but either one of them I could get in drafts. I would love to have them because they're going to run behind that offensive line. They've got a rookie quarterback. They're going to get good volume in the rushing game. So, yeah, I'm really excited for either of those two players this upcoming season. Let's see about some more of these guys. Oh, Trey Sermon. Trey Sermon's a back I really like taking. I like taking him or Mostert. I just want a piece of that 49ers rushing attack. They've looked so good in this preseason with Trey Lance. It's been kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think their running game is just going to take it to a completely another level. I think, Baltimore has been the number one rushing team these last few years, and they've been like the Baltimore of the NFC or whatever. I think they take the throne from Baltimore this year. I think they actually rush for more yards with Trey Lance. Trey Lance is a guy I love taking late in drafts. But I fully expect this 49ers rushing attack to have 500 attempts. And I think Trey Sermon and Raheem Mostert probably both get 200 each. And so I think getting one of those backs in the 6th or in the 7th round of drafts where they're currently going is a great value and adds that turbo button to your team where it's just like if Mostert is, at the beginning of the season stays healthy, he's going to be an awesome flex that you can get every single week and play him. I think he'll be very good for fantasy. And if he goes down, or even if he doesn't go down, I think Trey Sermon will have a big enough role to be solid for fantasy as a flex or something like that. And you can draft him currently as a bench player rate. So I really like drafting Trey Sermon or Raheem Mostert. I like drafting Trey Lance as well late in drafts. But just talking about running back values, those two are pretty good values. If anybody has any other questions, drop them in the chat. I'll answer anything anyone has. You can just ask me, who's the player I have most of my teams, anything like that. Any questions you have for me or your own teams, whatever it is. Tyreek Hill or Davante Adams? Okay, so I'm a Davante Adams guy, and the reason is basically touchdowns. Davante Adams has had, I think, double-digit touchdowns 3 of the last 4 years. Receivers really just don't do that consistently. I think Tyreek Hill will have a lot of touchdowns as well, but Davante just has that chance. He's at 20 touchdown chance, 10 touchdown chance. Not 10 touchdown chance. He does have a chance of having 10 touchdowns. But I think just with him and Rodgers, and he's just going to continue to be highly targeted. I think he's a guy who has close to a 30% target share. And Tyreek Hill just doesn't have the same target volume that he has. And we saw Davante Adams finish as a wide receiver 1 over Tyreek Hill when Tyreek Hill went off. And Davante Adams also went off, but he played in 13 and a half games last year. So Davante Adams is confirmed is my number 1 receiver. Okay, I've got the 6th pick in my draft. I was able to take Travis Kelce because of his massive domination at the position. But I took Eckler. What's your opinion? I would have taken Eckler. I think Travis is worth a lot, but I think in PPR drafts, especially, I'm imagining with Zeke gone, Rodolfo, that'd be the only guy I probably would have taken ahead of him at that point, probably in a PPR draft. I probably would have taken the only other one I might consider is Aaron Jones, but I would have taken Eckler over. I would have taken Eckler over Travis Kelce for sure, especially in a PPR draft. Here, let's see. We'll check something out here. Yeah, Zeke was taken at 5. I probably would have taken Eckler. Eckler or Aaron Jones, because I think Aaron Jones will get more passing volume this year with Jamal Williams out of town. But in full PPR, those guys are neck and neck. I don't think you can go wrong with either one. And I think their offensive lines now are pretty comparable with the losses that the Packers have had and the additions that the Chargers have had to their offensive lines. Not just Corey Linsley, but David Bakhtiari also got hurt for the Packers and he'll miss the first 6 games of the year at least. And the Chargers added Rashawn Slater, obviously. Let's take a look at some running back ADP. Oh, let's talk about Darrell Henderson too. I think everyone's freaking out about Darrell Henderson. And yeah, if you guys have any more questions, get them, drop them now. I'll probably be hopping off here in a minute or two. But I appreciate all you guys joining us. I'll be asking questions for a couple more minutes. But Darrell Henderson, I think everyone thinks Sony Michel is going to, come in and take a big chunk of his work. And I think he'll have games where he is the guy because they'll be trying to, make sure Darrell Henderson is healthy for as long as they can. Obviously, that's any good team. That's how they want to do it. But I do think that Who did I just? Oh, Darrell Henderson. I think Darrell Henderson's going to get the lion's share of this work. And when I say starting off strong, Darrell Henderson, I think, will start this season as a starter, getting close to 15 touches a game or something like that. I think in that offense with Stafford this year, that could be really dynamic for fantasy. So I've got him as my flex right now in my money league. I think he's a guy who could get you off to a really strong start to your season, and then you could flip him for somebody else. Flip him for a Gus Edwards, who I think is more sustainable long term and a really talented back. Gus Edwards might get off to such a hard start, you might not be able to trade for him. But a running back of that type, because I do think Sony Michel could have a few games where it's a workload, he gets more involved, and Henderson could go down. But as long as Henderson stays healthy, I think he will be the more heavily utilized back in that Rams scheme. I think that will be very advantageous for fantasy. I think also Matthew Stafford checks down to the running back a lot. That's going to help his value. Sony Michel's never really been much of a pass catcher in the NFL. He showed some pass catching chops in college, but I'm not too concerned about that. I think Darrell Henderson will get the majority of the pass catching down work. Okay, guys, thank you guys all for joining me. I really appreciated it. Rodolfo, Elgin, Carmen, Patur, thank you guys all so much for joining. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out too. Ripface, I appreciate all the comments. Anyone else who didn't comment, I appreciate you as well. All the thumbs up, all the good stuff. Hit that sub button on the channel. I'll have content coming your guys' way. I'm doing a couple more of these live streams before the season kicks off. Maybe even doing a fantasy league with fans, something crazy like that. I appreciate the sub, Ripface. Thank you so much. But yeah, if you guys want to play in a league or something, comment on my videos. Maybe we can get a league together or something like that before the season starts. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much. Peace out.